Hello. I've been having some conversations, or rather, exchanging comments with some I don't know what they want to call themselves, race realists or racists or neo-Nazis, whatever they want to call themselves, or it's up to them. And unfortunately, there's something wrong with YouTube comments. So I was talking to this GM for the people guy and another guy, I can't remember, who was going on about trying to persuade people that modern population genetics all indicates that we should treat people that we regard as separate races, that this kind of folk genetic idea of race that we're all familiar with, and that gets put into legislation and whatever. So we have, the Race Relations Act and Racial Discriminations Act and stuff like that. That this kind of folk idea of race has got some kind of solid basis in evolutionary and evolutionary biology and human genetics, that if only we look deep enough for it. And anyway, so I was exchanging comments with these people, but for some reason, by accident, I came across, by using somebody else's computer, that half of my comments were not showing up. So apologies to those people if it would appear that I didn't reply, but the comments are just not showing, which is annoying. So anyway, I was just going to leave it there, but then GM for the people pointed me towards this chap's video, in which he was commenting on my comments. So I'll play this and comment on his comments.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so they're talking to some Hoover Doover guy, some British guy. Let's see. Fuck. Where the hell is it? Yeah, I'm not really sure why the fuck he's even commenting. But, oh my god. Let's see. He says, this is really weird. YouTube is fucking this up because this is not in a chronological order. Because, yeah, GM for the people, who is, yeah, I've said he's a weird guy, but yeah. It's because of the way he writes. He writes in a really weird way. I don't really understand it at all times. It's like a lot of inside jokes, it seems. I don't know if you have to be like part of an English culture. I guess he's Canadian. I guess you are Canadian, so I don't know.
Have to be part of the Anglophone race.
You have to be part of that culture to get it, or you just have to be a neurotypical. I don't fucking know. Maybe it's my Asperger's. I don't know, fucking clue.
Hello.
He says, a cohesive, productive, and sustainable society has loads of room in which to extend empathy, but if we insist on going full retard, broadly accepting being ground down or replaced with others who are not us, and lack our qualities, foolishly accepting the praise and social validation of the cynical elites who are harvesting and replacing us, well, we will eventually be sucked dry and the system will degrade and become unglued. Yeah, I'll give you a thumbs up because that's a good comment, but then he sort of like, I don't know, gives up or something at the end of the day, because some people they just never end. They just post comment after comment after comment because they got no life. That's all they do, and they got sort of an honor and pride going on there, so, ooh, I gotta have the last word. That's just so fucking annoying. So I understand the idea of giving up. It's just, what the fuck is the point? It's just one person. And, you know, willfully ignorant morons, there's going to be plenty of them. And I'm not saying that this Hoover is one of them. I'm not saying that. But, from my point of view...
It's a fucking camp.
My subjective opinion... Well, he goes on to say, there are enough whatever. There are enough real problems in the world without creating new ones by making social policy based on people's psychological eccentricities. What the fuck is that supposed to mean? You know, it's just, you don't put two people who hate each other in the same room. You know, you don't take Nazis and communists and put them in the same nation and hope that things will work out. Yeah, you don't take like a pit bull and a poodle in the same fucking room, a violent pit bull, and it's just fucking stupid. You know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is what we have data on. You know, it's just conflicts, tensions, people being unhappy. You know, but fuck that. I don't really fuck what people want. In a way. What most people want. If enough people, say it's just 20% that is incredibly unhappy and want to opt out, and they want to be left alone. Yeah. That's leave them the fuck alone. Then he goes on to say, no doubt I am as bigoted as the next man. That's okay. Thing is to recognize that for what it is and what it isn't, and it ain't rational. Well, again, what is? You wanting a hamburger, you wanting food is rational? Why? Because being hungry is rational? No, it's just a fucking urge. It's just a hormonal, emotional urge. Heck, there are people that have consciously tried to fight against their hunger. Heck, why is life rational? What's so fucking rational about life? Why is avoiding suffering rational? This is just, ass. And then it goes on to say, it's particularly insane to expect other people to buy into one's own particular brand. Don't know what that fucking means. Did you choose your own brand?
Well, I gave the example of, like, I'm as bigoted as the next person, right? So, I don't like clowns. And, you know, my first feeling when I see a clown is I'd like to put a bullet through his head. But then another thought comes into my head, which is like, well, that would be a bad thing to do, or, well, you know, there are other people that seem to like what this clown does, or whatever. And so, you know, I modify my initial impression, because, you know, we have, you know, we're not a one-trick pony, you know, we've got different ideas in our head and they conflict with each other, and the product of that conflict will often be, well, it's my problem, I should just keep that to myself and I should not act upon it.
Oh, he's talking about race, is he? Okay.
No, I'm talking about your own
bigotry,
your own personal bigotries.
I mean, did you choose being a sentient life? It's just, what the fuck? You are what you are, and if you feel an urge and a preference and a more affinity for one group, then you do. End.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily mean you act on those feelings. because we have better ideas in our heads than those initial impressions, those initial feelings.
If the tree-hugging liberals had got to you first, would the object of your energies be any different? I don't know.
You don't know. You know, so you suggesting that you know all of your urges and interests and whatever are genetically determined. You know the hardest possible way that you can think of, that your mother and father have had, and your teachers and your kids at school, the ones who were friends with, the ones who bullied you, stuff you've read in the paper or seen on the TV, none of that has any influence on you whatsoever. It's all down to genes. I'd say that's bollocks.
And then Jim, for the people, he objects to him, saying that it's psychological eccentricity, but then he says, what else can you call this brand of DNA worshipping? Incidentally, why do you assume that your interest and those of your DNA are necessarily in alignment? Well, because you are your DNA. Like, if I want to fuck, I want to fuck. Yeah. If I want to have food,
bollocks, prove it. I mean, yeah, so you want to, I don't know, you want to fuck the black chick or something, and then the little racist inside of you says, well, hang on a minute, no, I can't do that because that would make me a race traitor, and so that one wins, yeah? So, no, you don't act purely on your first impulse.
I want to have food. Sometimes I might want to fuck an Asian girl. Sometimes I might want to fuck a black woman. But I also have urges that tells me I don't heck want to have children with them. So, yeah. It is
yes.
what it is. It's pretty simple.
So you're not always acting on your biological urges. There's other biology, more sophisticated biology, that's going, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to do it, but I've got other agendas that are in conflict with that, so I'm not going to do that. So what does that tell you about the nature of our own personal prejudices, bigotry, whatever you want to call it?
DNA worshipping. I mean, if you have this strong drive for self-preservation, you have a strong drive for self-preservation. Sorry, it's what it is. It's here. Accept it, or pretend, or be.
I am accepting it.
I mean, what the fuck?
I don't have to endorse it.
Yeah. And then he says, assuming for the moment you do get what you desire, do you think bigotry will magically disappear, or will it find a new focus of attention? It will probably find a new focus of attention. Probably.
Yeah, so what does that tell you? What does that tell you about the value of this fucking wanting to separate yourself out from other people based on some arbitrary difference that you've become obsessed about?
But I can tell you one thing. I don't think it's going to be very successful in society, or an optimal society, to have as many differences as possible. I think the less differences you have, the better. There will probably still be, causes for separation in one way or another. There will still be some sort of division, just less so.
So what if we just picked one individual, right? One who we thought, oh, this is a fine specimen of humanity, right? And then we cloned them and got rid of everybody else, or put them on an island somewhere. And so the whole world is made up of just this one clone, genetically identical. Are you going to tell me that they're not going to find something to dislike about each other, or will compromise their sense of loyalty to their race or their clone or whatever. It's just not going to happen, is it?
It's going to be more cohesive. Is it going to be perfectly cohesive? No, but better, probably.
Probably.
Like people have never killed and fought over things as much as ethnicity and race. Just incredible, and it never.
Well, I mean, I don't know. That's arguable. I mean, most conflict is over. It's usually over trade, isn't it? The fact that those conflicts are usually between people of different ethnicity or whatever is. Maybe that's important, but it's probably just a kind of it's probably just concomitant with whatever it is that they're fighting about.
Never goes away. Never really goes away. You know, we tried to. You know, this whole ethnicity thing where Europeans were infighting and such, that sort of was able to disappear in, say, America, where Europeans mixed and they gave up their former identities. But it doesn't really work in, say, Brazil or South America. Race tends to stick in a way that ethnicities do.
Yeah, well, I mean, Europeans they've had longer to do it, maybe. Within Europe, they've had longer to do it than the colonies. But there's also the fact that these kind of handy genetic markers that you're so obsessed about are less prominent. You Viking lot, you came over to France, got Frenchified, and then came over here, taking our women and everything else, and there's no way of distinguishing people of pure Viking descent or people of Celtic descent or whatever, because we just don't have those handy genetic markers. That the folk idea of genetics is can quite easily get a handle on and put people into categories where there's no such natural categories.
Does not.
Plus, of course, like you take South America, it's just not the only race is just not the only factor. There's going to be all the people of Spanish descent. They're the ones who've got all the money. The people of indigenous descent are probably not going to have so much money, and the people who were brought over as slaves are going to have even less money, right? So it's not what these things aren't easily disentangled.
So race seems to be a special case, a special issue. That's what I've seen, but whatever, I don't care. Yeah.
Maybe what you want to say.
Then who says something else? Man, I'm really tired now. Then he says, one of the reasons why I conclude this race crap doesn't go anywhere, people find all kinds of reasons to discriminate them from us, particularly when they want to justify doing something unpleasant to them.
Yeah.
Race, however you want to define it, is just one of them. Why should I find it particularly interesting? Well, because it's probably not as malleable as ethnicity. That's why. But if you don't find it particularly interesting, that's fine.
I don't really know what you mean by that. I mean, it's certainly easier for certain things to become certain information to be lost more than others. So the fact that, you know, if you're descended, you know, maybe you're descended from Norwegians or something, but you know, you're not going to know about that. But you will know about your African great-grandfather. But you know, we are attuned to certain characteristics more than others. Our senses are going to be limited in what they can pick up on, and then they're going to obsess about the ones that we can pick up on and ignore those that we can't.
Enough people do to make it a problem, and that's why you should find it interesting.
Yeah, but you're the
If anything. Enough people do to cause problems.
Yeah, so don't
Then
find it
he
a
says
problem and the
something,
problem goes away.
GM for the people response. So we consider it to be a right to prefer closer genetic relations to more distant ones. Then you respond saying, who's we? My genes might. I'm a little more selective. Probably not. If you don't prefer your own consciously, and you can actually rise above your urges, then your urges are probably not very selective. There's always going to be members of any species that is not very loyal to their in-group, that is not aiding the divergence of species and subspecies. There's always going to be those that want to sort of go back and blend and create a...
How do you explain the presence of this? You know, if you're such a hard genetic determinist, how do you explain the existence of these traitors?
Bigger group that is genetically less likely. There's always going to be those genetic deviants, if you wish. So yeah, you're probably one of them if you are able to be more selective. Then it goes on to say, except at the racial level. My genes don't care about that, or the species level for that matter. At least that is what our current understanding of selections tells us. No, bullshit. Then...
Well, demonstrate that. Demonstrate that's bullshit.
Gene for the people says, we have concentric rings of empathy around family, tribe, race, species. Yes, I would agree with that. In general, with exceptions for individuals. You know, if you have a dog or a non-white friend or whatever. But yeah, other than that, yes. And then he...
So you're just going to dismiss these glaring omissions, you know, to your thesis?
Goes on to say, as a phenomenon, evidently. So I guess he agrees with it. But then he says little to do with genetics beyond...
No, I'm agreeing that the phenomenon that people in their folky genetic way categorize people into races. I'm not agreeing that the races exist in any kind of meaningful way, or at least not in the way that people, racists are implying that it means.
Individual and family, though. So he doesn't agree with it. I don't know. Maybe up your mind. Or he's just saying as a phenomenon, evidently for family and the individual.
We have a Race Relations Act. Most people will put people into categories, and often you get different people and they'll put a certain person in, you know, they'll all put them into the same category or whatever. However, it just because we have this shared taxonomic urge doesn't mean there's any underlying objective reality to those categories. But we're trying to fit essentially something that's continuous into natural kinds, and those natural kinds just don't exist. Sorry.
Then he says, no concentric circles on that front. I like my friend or my cat more than your friend or your cat because they are mine. My bigotry, not because I'm any more related to them. Pretending otherwise as racial realist appear to... Racial realist? Racial realist is, first of all, I mean, I don't...
Well, whatever. I mean, it's a term that I've heard people like yourself use. If you want to be called something else, then let me know. But you seem to be share the same view as the people who are calling themselves racial realists. I.e., you know, that races are real. They want to take this folk genetic concept of race that we're all familiar with, and is familiar enough with that it finds ourselves into our law making and how we operate and everything else, and then searching the scientific literature for information that confirms those subjective assessments.
No, racial realist seems to be a synonym for hereditarians. Not really, this is not really the same thing. This is another subject. This is another topic, but whatever.
Well, you'll have to enlighten me.
Yeah. Racial realists. Yeah, I think I agree with French. I don't really like the term. I'm a realist. I like those phones over there. I'm progressive.
You think races are real?
I'm
really enough to act upon?
No one else cares about happiness. Only me. Only I am fair. Only I am progressive. Only I am real. I see the real things. Man. Well, here's the thing. You can care about your cat more than you care about other humans, and that's fine.
I do, yeah.
But chances are that you're going to care more about other humans than about other cats. See? So yeah, you can make individual exceptions.
Oh, I don't know. You see, if I was in a boat and it's capsizing and there was you and my cat in it, then if I'm being honest, my initial impulse would be to save my cat, right? Because I'm a bigot. Because I like my cat. I've got shared shared history with that cat, and you know, we're pals. You know, I don't know from Adam, and I have no emotional attachment to you whatsoever, and so what would probably happen in my brain is that my brain will probably say initially, save the cat, save the cat, save the cat. And then another bit of my brain would go, well, hold on a minute, this guy's probably got family, you know, he's a racist and everything else, but, you know, he's still a human being, so, you know, I should maybe knock that save the cat business on the head and try and save you. But, you know, if I'm honest about the initial impulse, then it's going to have nothing to do with the fact that you are a human being, or that you are nice, blonde, blue-eyed Swede, and not a nasty non-European. It's going to have nothing to do with that. It's just going to be down to my bigotry.
And chances are you're going to care more for your adoptive African child than for other children. But chances are you're probably also going to care
I'm a
more
bigot.
about white children, if you're white, than African children in general.
Because I don't know them.
Yeah, but that's just not this exact thing, but the data seems to imply that babies have more empathy to their own race, and people are willing to sacrifice other people's at their own expense, or at their expense, sacrifice them if it benefits, you know, their own race, or they're willing to sacrifice people who are not of their race. They're willing to
and their silly ideas.
Give more to charity and
self-serving,
cooperative with people of their own race. There's just a lot of this, just a whole lot of evidence of this. So this whole idea that we don't have more empathy for our own seems to be bullshit, because it seems like we do have that.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that.
Then he says, on genetic interest, and he says, yes, I've considered such ideas. So have others. Dawkins, for instance, wrote a book specifically about that subject. Perhaps, though perhaps not immediately recognizable as such. Are you talking about the selfish gene?
Yeah.
Because the selfish gene, I don't really see how that's a critique to the concept of genetic interest by Frank Salter at all. And
I'll read the book.
I'd say that's wrong.
Again.
I've read both books, and if that's the book
you need to read it again.
Saying, then I don't really know what you're talking about. You're not saying so. And then he says, in a nutshell, this Salter chap, or those interpreting his work, is trying to shoehorn group selection ideas into sociological phenomena.
That's the impression I got.
Evidence, please.
No, I haven't got any.
But I gotta say, you know, analyzing his commentary, in a nutshell, this Salter chap, or those interpreting his work, is not saying and. So the word or implies that he's not sure if it's Salter who's doing this, or those interpreting it.
That's
which
correct.
Implies that he is not aware of Salter's work, right?
Correct.
He's not saying this Salter chap and those interpreting his work is trying to shoehorn. He's saying this Salter chap or those interpreting his work. It seems like he doesn't really know who is doing it.
You have that
he's not
right.
sure if it's Salter, which implies that he probably is not aware of him or hasn't read it.
I'm aware
So
of similar ideas.
What value does your words have on this? Yeah. But maybe it's just bad wording, I don't know. But based upon his wording...
No, it's careful wording, because I didn't want to imply that I was very familiar with the chap, but I'm familiar with the kind of basic idea, and familiar enough with genetics and population genetics to know what the kinds of arguments that he would be putting forward would look like. So yeah, no, I haven't read extensively this guy, but and I can't really be bothered, to be honest, to read the stuff. But from what I have read, it's nothing new to me, and so I feel confident enough to comment on the general idea. The other GM for the People guy didn't state what this guy's ideas was. He just left a reference, and you know, if he can't be bothered to give me a summary of what this guy is talking about, then I certainly can't be bothered to read this stuff to answer.
Yeah, he says it's weak stuff at best. Yeah, and you're a homosexual tranny.
My secret shame.
Then he says, you explain the difference between black countries and white countries by guns, germs, and steel. Jim for the People says. Actually, I haven't seen Hober say that, but whatever. Then Hober says, I don't think I did, actually. And yeah, he did. Jim for the People, you got prejudice, man. But you're not the only one. We all have them.
Yeah.
Then it says, but since I now feel guilty about wasting our time and energy, I will do as your request and have butchers at MrHerr's review. Yeah, so he admits that he's probably going to butcher them. Just as I'm probably butchering his comments, just as let's always butcher each other, because we are not. No human is in trouble.
No, well, you just you just don't belong to the Anglophone race, you see. So she just didn't understand that. I think the GM for the People guy explained it. It's nothing sinister.
On.
Yeah, it's kind of dispiriting that these kind of really quite warped ideas about genetic determinism are raising their head again and finding a home in these kind of racist circles. But it's not just racism, you know. I mean, I've heard people people on the internet talk about you know, that denying, you know, that denying that we don't live in a meritocracy, and saying that the reason why social mobility is declining is because we've all found our place, you know, and that you know, if we all found our place, then we should expect there to be a lack of social mobility, right? So completely ignores the fact that there's a huge turnover of population, and that and so then they have to resort to these genetic deterministic kind of ideas, you know, that poor children are poor not because their parents were poor, but because they have poor genes, you know. That it's just so ridiculous, because, you know, we can do we do the real experiments, right? We you know, like in this country we have private schools that rich people send their kids to, and they get a good education there, but education isn't the half of it, right? You get to rub shoulders with all the other the kids with rich parents, and you get all the connections and everything, and then you all go to the same universities, and then you all monopolise all the great jobs and everything, and scratch each other's asses. Yeah, and you know, and surprise, surprise, if you go to a state school, you know, your chances are pretty slim, and it is kind of, for the people that where, you know, everything works out nice for them, it's kind of convenient to fall back on these ideas that that somehow the poor deserve it. You know, well, there's something other than hereditary privilege going on here. It's in the genes, you know. And you know, we can do the thought. We can do, you know, we've done the real experiment, so we can do the thought experiment, right? If you took 100 kids, 50 poor kids and 50 rich kids, and you swap them at birth, and the poor kids got all the advantages that the rich kids have. You know, what's the result going to be? Is anyone going to be surprised by the result? And the idea of ignoring all these socio-economic and the whole variety of ways in which people's environment varies from person to person, place to place, and time to time, and then ignoring all that and then concentrating on you know, these few traits that are genetic, it's not just distasteful, but it's just absurd, and you know, from a scientific point of view, it's just you know, you're explaining a tiny proportion of the data with this crap, and ignoring components that make up the vast majority of the variation.